Okay, Jim, I'm ready. Ay, ay, ay. You ready, Jim?
We're ready.
Hi, welcome to ReneMarie Stroke of Luck. I'm ReneMarie, and happy, blessed New Year's. We can't thank God that 2020 is in our past and 2021 is looking for a bunch of hope. And we really want to feel good about the future. especially with the pandemic that is occurring. But life still goes on while the pandemic was happening, and that's a scary thing. Suffering a stroke is the first leading cause of disability in the United States, and it's challenging and it's scary and it changes your life. And we hope to bring some hope to those that suffer a stroke or have suffered a stroke, because your world changes when you and the loved ones around you experience a stroke. And we really hope that you'll be aware of that and always take that into consideration when you get up in the morning. Really appreciate life and appreciate the moments. I really think that that's one of the biggest life lessons that that 2020 should bring to us, is that life can change in one split second, and we really need to love one another and enjoy the moments. And as much as we need to work, we also need to balance our lives. My friend Karen Noe, please follow her. She is an incredible spiritual medium. And she told a story on her Facebook about she contracted COVID-19. And she honestly believes that it was contracted because she was praying for, unknowingly praying for something to slow her down and give her a chance to rest a little bit. And this really slowed her down. So balance your life. That's really one of the important lessons that 2020 will bring to us, is to really live a fulfilled life, balance your life, and live each day like it could be your last. And that's a hard thing to realize, but it really is the truth. And that's really hard. So happy New Year, blessed New Year to everybody. We have an incredible 2 shows today. Our first show, Judy. Hi, Judy. How are you today? Co-host Judy.
I'm good.
Barlow. How are you, Judy?
Hi. Happy New Year to everybody.
Judy did a wonderful job setting up with Marcia and Jim, who we'll introduce in a few moments. But Keith Taylor was a connection for all of us. I'm going to talk to Marcia and Jim about how they met Keith in a few minutes. But Judy read her book. So Marcia is our guest today, and she wrote a book, Stroke Forward. I have it too. See? Yeah. Marcia was gracious enough to send it to both of us. And really, it's how to become your own health care advocate one step at a time. That's so true, because we always say that you need to have a support group when you go into the hospital. Yes, the doctors are there and they're the guiding forces, but you need to have someone to be your advocate when you're in the hospital, making sure that the direction that you want your life to go in is going to go in that direction. So Marcia's husband, Jim, is here today to share with us, his experience. And Marcia was passionate about having Jim on the show because she's so wise in sharing that there are different perspectives of a stroke, and there's different players in the stroke world, and you need all those players. Like a softball game, you need all the players to play correctly, and that's it. So Judy read the book. So Judy, give us a quick synopsis before we talk to Marcia and Jim about your view of the book. I didn't have time to read it yet, but I promise I will, and I'll give my support of the book once I read it, my full support.
Well, Marcia starts off her book with being in bed, waking up, and realizing something is wrong, and managing to get out of bed, but she can't walk, and she's actually crawling along the second floor. Her husband's downstairs. He got up earlier. He was reading downstairs. He had no idea what was going on. He heard a noise like maybe something dropped, and he started to go up the stairs, and that's when he discovered that Marcia had had a stroke. And what I like about the book is that every chapter, everything that's happened with Marcia, Jim will tell his perspective, how he was feeling at the time, what he was going through, talking with the doctors, the every experience. And even in the hospital, you get Jim's view, Marcia's view, the doctor's view, sister's view, all different views on it. And what I found remarkable about Marcia was her will to get better. Her, no matter what the doctor said or the physical therapist, she knew she could do better, and she sought out people to help her. Even when she was through with rehab and she was out, she knew she wasn't the best she could be, and she sought out the right people, and she could judge a doctor, and we all can. When you meet a doctor and he examines you, you could tell whether he's going to be helpful to you or you're just another patient. And if you're just another patient, you need another doctor, somebody who's going to work with you through what you're going through. And she did it with the physical therapist, the speech therapist, everybody. And it was remarkable. And she has, at the end of each chapter, how to proceed, a toolkit for everybody reading the book about what to do to make it work out. And her progress was because of her attitude and her will to get better.
Wow, that's incredible.
I strongly urge everybody to read it. And it was just a remarkable experience.
And not only stroke survivors should read this, but families should read this, and people who have not experienced a stroke in their family should really read this, because strokes happen to, I'm not sure the number. I think it's 1 out of 5. Marcia, do you know the answer to that question?
That's about right.
1 out of 5 people in the world will have a stroke. So it's some format. Some are more severe than others, but so we really wanted to, for all those joining us today, make sure that everybody reads this book, because it really is an important tool.
Because when a stroke hits, and when my father had a sudden stroke, I didn't know all these things.
Yes.
And I went through a lot of what Marcia was talking about.
Wow. So thank you so much for joining us today, Marcia and Jim. We're blessed to have you. Before we get into your story and tell us how you met Keith, because Keith was a connection. Keith is our friend and our partner. And from Keith, the name? Strength After Stroke is the name of Keith's organization, and he does wonderful work. We've done many shows together, and he's going to come on to our show again. He's so passionate about support and getting the word out, like we all are, and like Marcia and Jim are. But how did you meet Keith? Where did you meet him?
So I met him through ReneMarie, and
what's ReneMarie?
ReneMarie is Stroke Forward Oregon. She set up, and I met him through her, and we did a few episodes of just talking about where we're going, and that turned into, I read his book, and I suggested a few edits.
Hey, you know what? A book is always good to be edited. Make a first edition, second edition, third edition, but always publish the book. Don't wait until it's absolutely perfect, because Steve Harrison, Jack Canfield's publicist, taught me not to wait. Like, you should do your work and stuff, but don't make it perfect, because you'll never get it out then. So,
exactly. So I just made a few suggestions, whether he accepted them or not. It's what he decided. But he's a really cool guy.
Yes. Yes. So, okay. So before we, next step is tell us. We want to hear a little about your background. You first, Marcia, and then you, Jim. So to give us a story, to lay out the story of how your lives, like when you got married and what you did for because we want to lay out the story a little bit. So go ahead, Marcia. Tell us when you got married and if you have any children and what you did for your career. I know you were you graduated from college. So tell us a little bit about your history.
Well, we got married in 1988, which doesn't seem as long ago as it really is. And when we got back from our honeymoon, he heard that we were going to transfer out to California. And I was mad. But what I learned along the way, so we transferred 3 times. And what I've learned is the most important thing is your attitude. So if you've got a bad attitude, you're going to have a bad time. Right. And if you switch it around and say, I'm going to find joy in whatever is around me, you have a good time.
Right, right. And that happens with anything and everything. And that really, I believe, was setting you up for your stroke experience. Because if you didn't have the attitude you had going through your stroke experience, and we'll talk about this later on in the show, is what we were saying before, it really takes us to do the work with the support of our loved ones, and that is one of the keys to being successful. So you guys got married in 1988 and you moved 3 times. And what did you do? What was your career? Could you take your career anywhere you got transferred? And why did you move around from Jim's career? What did you do, Jim?
So, well, I was in the military for 20 years.
Oh.
So I was in the Air Force.
Thank you for your service for our country.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was in the Air Force. My first assignment was up in Grand Forks, North Dakota, which is where I met Marcia. And like she said, we came back from our honeymoon, and it's kind of I'll try to make this a quick story. I was riding up the elevator in our office building, and one of my friends was in the elevator with me. He goes, "Oh, congratulations." And I said, "Oh, thanks." He goes, "When are you leaving?" I said, "Oh, no, we just got back from our honeymoon." He goes, "No, when are you leaving for your new assignment?" And I looked at him and I was like, "What?"
Oh, no.
So, yeah, so soon after, we ended up moving to California, and we were out there for about 4 years. And then we went from California to Boston, Massachusetts. Actually, we lived in New Hampshire, but I worked in Boston. And then from there, we went to Washington, D.C., and that's kind of where I was for the rest of my career.
Wow.
And it's where we currently live, too. So
in Washington, D.C.?
Virginia, around the D.C. area.
Yeah. I actually went to Washington, D.C. on an advocacy with the American Stroke Association to fight for strokes. And while I was in the area, a friend of mine traveled with me, Michelle, and she went on a pilgrimage to, I think, France. I don't even know where she went. But anyway, she met a woman, Mary, who lived in the Washington, D.C. area. She took us on a tour of Washington. There's nothing like going with somebody that lives in the area.
Yes.
Because we knocked everything out. She was like, this. It was fabulous. And it is an experience that most people should experience in their life if you live in the United States. If you live in the United States of America, we went into the building. While I was with the American Stroke Association, we had bigger access than most. So, we went into the meet with the senators. We went to, it was fabulous. We went downstairs. We walked that path downstairs. I didn't know there was an underground world in the White House. There's an underground world in the White House. Oh, yes. I had no idea. So it was very interesting, very interesting. So anyway, so Marcia, so what were you doing like the day before your experience?
I probably was working on a client. So 3 years before the stroke, I started my own business, and I would actually listen to what a client was doing, and I could reformat that into actually saying what they did. So most people don't actually say what they do. So I was.
So what was your business? I know you just shared with us what you do, but what is your title of your business? What is the name of your business, and what was the mission for it?
So I was the performance architect, and my mission was to actually make what they said they did into what they actually did. So reformatting.
That's fabulous. That's a great name. That's
Yes.
a great name.
Well, I don't do that anymore because the day I had my stroke is the day performance architect stopped, because I wasn't behind it anymore. I had to get better. So.
Yeah, but you use those tools that you learned for those 3 years in the next phase of your life.
Absolutely.
So nothing happens without reason. Nothing. Everything happens for a reason. And all those gifts that you learned along the way are why you're sitting here able to share with us and the passion you have behind it. I honestly, 1,000,000% believe that, you know. So okay, so you were working that day, and then Judy shared a little bit with us, but tell us your feeling on what had happened that morning, and then Jim, you tell us your perspective on it.
Okay, so I woke up and I know I felt odd. So I got my phone out and I texted my friend Rochelle and told her I wasn't going to make breakfast. And I couldn't understand what was on the screen. I thought, I must be tired or something. I put the phone down, I rolled over, and I had the most incredible headache ever. Right. And despite the pain, I fell asleep. And that is the worst thing I could do, because the next time I woke up, I was paralyzed from the top of my head to the tip of my toes on the right-hand side. So I rolled out of bed and literally dragged myself across the carpet with my left side. And I got to the door, which was closed, and I had to reach up and grab the handle. And I don't know how many times I reached up, but it finally snuck open. And I took a short breather, I think. And I crawled down the hall until I totally ran out of gas. And I thought, well, Jim will come out for something to drink sometime. And I don't know what it was, but something fell down and went crash. And he came upstairs.
What was that time frame, Jim?
Between
her getting out in the hallway. Do you have any idea?
No. As she was saying that, one thing we could not figure out was what the noise was that I heard. Nothing was tipped over. Nothing had fallen. But as you were saying that, I'm thinking what I might have heard is she might have inadvertently kicked the bedroom door. But usually when I hear something heavy, like fall, I usually go upstairs to make sure that she's okay, and if she needs help picking or cleaning something up, because we've had cats all the time and they're always knocking stuff over.
Do you both believe in angels? Do you have that faith? Do you both believe that there is a bigger picture, and that could have happened to get your attention, Jim?
So I believe that one of my parents could have rattled something.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I believe that there's a bigger picture.
Yeah. So Jim, so you ran up and you saw Marcia laying on the ground?
So we have a split level
house.
Yeah, what's the thing by the front door?
The
the landing, I guess. So there's a landing between the two floors, and I had, come to the top of the landing and was starting to go up the second set of stairs, and I looked and she was laying on the floor at the top of the stairs. And my first thought is she's always had back problems. So I walked up and I said, "Are you okay?" Thinking that maybe she had a back issue, and she didn't answer. And I said, "Can you talk?" And she didn't say anything. So I said, "I'm going to call 911." And I did. And from that point on, we just kind of, I tried to make her comfortable, whatever I could do. But oddly, the ambulance got there very quickly, at least from a time perspective. That's what it seemed like, is they got there very quickly. And I was still trying to figure out what was wrong with her. And then once the paramedics were inside taking care of her, one of them was asking me a bunch of questions. One, of course, the questions was, how long ago did she have the stroke? Yeah. And that I had no idea. So they couldn't give her the medication that would actually help at that point. But when he said the word stroke, that was the first time I even considered that was the situation. And it was like, a slap across the head. It's like, wow, a stroke.
Yeah. Because when you heard a stroke, what's the perspective that you have of strokes?
That it's a devastating situation for not only the person, but everybody around her.
Yeah. And do you connect that to your grandparents really having a stroke, or did you feel?
Did anyone else in your family have a stroke?
No, this was the first stroke I'd ever encountered. There may have been some strokes, like in great aunts or great uncles that I really didn't know well, but not in my immediate family. Mm-hmm. So this was my first experience with a stroke.
Wow. Marcia, did you have any family history of strokes?
Yeah, so my grandmother died of a stroke at 77.
Wow.
My great uncle had a stroke. But I thought I was too young to have a stroke. I learned very quickly that you can have a stroke at any age, and you can have a stroke for any reason. So I can say that because I had a stroke and I didn't know of any reason that I could have it. I asked the doctor, they didn't know why I had a stroke. I just had it. So
they couldn't give you any?
They had no idea. So I had normal blood pressure. I had normal, I ran every day. They had no idea why I had a stroke.
But tell us your stroke experience. What was it that caused? Because you were telling me it was in your aorta.
So my carotid artery.
Carotid artery.
And it grew a blood clot, and the blood clot got loose and caused the stroke.
Wow. And there's and I'm not asking because I'm just trying to think out loud. So there's no reason, there's no history or reason why that would happen to a person. Like there's no, and the other question I would think is there any way to prevent that? Like, is there, like, if you take a baby aspirin a day, would that have, I don't know. I'm just trying to think out of the box,
So I think that there is no way around that, because the dissection caused a little lumen to collect the blood. And when the blood was sitting there, it clotted. So I think I was destined to have a stroke, unfortunately.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
I was going to say, talking with the doctors, they say something of that nature is usually caused by some sort of trauma. And that was when we started counting the number of car accidents she had been in her life. And it's quite possible that those car accidents that cause the whiplash effect can weaken the arteries. And so that's something to actually think about. The other thing was, at the time she had her blood pressure under control, but she had been diagnosed with high blood pressure like a year before, but she had gotten it to where it was under control. but I didn't know until then that her family had a history of high blood pressure as well.
Wow.
So,
Wow. And do you think, I mean, just thinking, do you think once she had her accidents, maybe she also experienced TIAs that nobody, no?
No.
No? Okay. I'm just,
Yeah.
okay.
no, just trying to like put the pieces together. That's all. That's all. So tell us, some of the recovery support that this is what you're passionate about. This is why, and share with everybody. I know you shared with me in the Zoom green room why you decided to note everything down. So tell us a little bit about that first, and then go into some of the support that you could give, that we could help everybody with.
So I decided to write my book when I was in the hospital. And I didn't know that I would actually publish it, but it took me 4.5 years to write. And the interesting thing about writing it is, so I started writing 1 year anniversary. And I got done writing it, and I read it, and I went, this is terrible. It has no emotion in it. So I put it down, and I picked it up again, and I rewrote it. I went, well, this is better. But I put it down, and I rewrote it a third time. And when I rewrote it the third time, I was totally honest about everything. So how I felt with my family, which is the hardest thing to do. How I felt with my friends. And I guess the thing that I was most worried about was publishing something that was so bare for me.
That's wonderful. That's but that's why it's so it's your book. It's your story. That's why it will be successful, because you're open and honest with it. It's almost like Robin Roberts when she went through her cancer and the blood transfusion that she needed, and she was very raw and honest, and she came out with a bald head, someone that's on TV every day. Like, she was open and honest with everybody, and this book is along the same facets to that people can read it and feel it. Right, Judy? You felt it.
What I liked about it was when Marcia woke up, she states, I could take action, I could get out of bed and do everything I could do to get help, or I could do nothing and accept what happened and give up. And a lot of people would have given up. That was the start of her wanting to get better. And
wow, that's incredible. So, Marcia, tell us, tell us, like, how did were you taking notes along the way, like the whole way?
No. So I couldn't write. Or I couldn't write well, I guess.
Yeah.
I still don't write well.
Me neither. I don't write well. With my right hand, I became ambidextrous. I can write with my left, and I'm very computer. Like, I'm really, like, with my one hand, on the computer.
So I think that's really interesting, because I couldn't think of how to spell the words. I couldn't think about how the words fit together. So when I started writing on the computer, it took me all day to write 2 paragraphs, because it took me a while to think about what word I wanted to use and what word came after it. And a lot of times I couldn't think of the word that came after it. So it took a lot of the thesaurus for me to think about, oh, yeah, I want this word here. Yeah.
But you were in it. You were trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's one of the gifts. I don't know. I didn't read the book, so I'm not sure if that's one of the lessons that you teach everybody. But that's, you were in it. You wanted to, you wanted to figure it out. You sat there, you tried to understand what the words are and how you could do. And even though you had to write your book 3 times before it made any sense to anybody, you wrote it. You wrote it, and you tried to figure it out. Jim, how did you feel how did you communicate with Marcia? Because I remember, as well as what Marcia said, and this is one of the things that I talk about when I speak about aphasia, is most doctors initially back a while ago thought that aphasia was only the speaking, but actually it is the understanding, and it is the communicating where you can't.
I think they call it what's that other word, Marcia? Aphasia, aphexia.
So apraxia is the
apraxia.
Yeah. So Jim, how did you handle that? What was your perspective on it?
That's a good question. I mean, I think from the point where I could actually start talking to her, which was fairly soon after the stroke, much to my surprise, we were able to communicate either, I would say something and she could nod, or she could say yes. She couldn't, say full sentences very much, but we were able to communicate. I think the best part about it is she trusted me.
Yeah.
You also were very worried about her when she was able to, whether she was able to swallow, and you were very worried that she might choke.
Oh yeah, that was in the
beginning.
That was while she was still in the hospital, like 2 days after the stroke. They told me that we had to first of all, she could only eat certain things that wouldn't require her to swallow very heavily.
That would be liquid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyhow, and from there it went, to kind of strained foods, and then, it gradually got to where it was, more solid. But as she got to the more solid, they said we have to monitor while she's eating to make sure that she doesn't choke. And I said, well, why is that? And they said, because with the situation, the thing that lets you know that you're choking doesn't work on people who've had a stroke.
And it could go into your lungs.
Exactly. Wow. So when they told me that, it was, it was kind of like another slap to the head. It was like, holy cow, she could die just from eating. And that's kind of the first, and I actually put this in the book. That was the first time in my life that I really felt scared.
Wow. I want to go back to something you just said, Jim, which is a really important piece to the caregivers and support team around them, is to build that. I know Marcia trusted you, but I remember when I had my stroke, and this is how I speak about it now, is, when you have a trauma, right? Marcia, was a trauma that we experienced. And that's why I believe you need to love them through it. You guys have such a bond that she trusted you fully. But with me, I had people in my life that I loved, but I had this trauma, and I needed to peel back the layers of the onion to get to that pure space where I could trust people. My family wasn't, what's the word I'm looking for? They didn't have the tools that I needed to understand that. You probably had it because you were in the Air Force, right? The Air Force you were in. You learn those tools that you could support her, and love her through it. But with me, I had to, until Dominic Cordelesa came into my life, and he was strong, but he was caring, and he helped me to navigate through it, which is really an important piece to that. So, Marcia, I know Jim said you just trusted him. So how did you feel that way about everybody in your life? Did you open up to everybody? Did you feel that way about everybody in your life?
So I definitely felt that for Jim, and I definitely felt close with my sister and my family. I didn't actually interact much with other people for quite a while. And when they came to my house, one or two at a time, I trusted them. I think I have a real close connection with my friends, and I've known many of them for a long time. So, like, we've been in Virginia for more than 20 years, and I've known many of them for about 20 years. So,
Wow.
I guess I trusted them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard thing, you know, especially when you've been shattered, like, you know, and and it's like dropping a piece of glass, you know, and you're scattered all over the place. That's how I felt.
And
So
I think, Renee, your family, your father and your sister, they were really shocked because he had just had a baby who was 6 months old, and they were very frightened. And
they were frightened.
they were very frightened. They wanted to do everything they could for you, but they were bewildered in how to proceed.
And that could be why Dominic was a better he wasn't in it personally, you know, in my situation, you know, because I was married at the time. But they didn't, you know, like I said, it's just, you go through things and you travel through, you journey through your life, and everything happens, and everybody kind of comes into your life to help you, to support you, like, you know, angels come into your life. So anyway, so Marcia, what is one of the life lessons that you have learned? I mean, I'm sure there's many, but, you know, give us one of the life lessons that you believe that you learned from this. And Jim, I want to hear yours as well.
You can't do everything yourself.
Yeah.
So before the stroke, I'd say I was probably I can do everything. And he's laughing. So yeah, you have to learn to trust other people to do things for you. Because when you've had a stroke, at least for my stroke, I could lay in bed, and that's about all.
When you suffered a stroke, you were bedridden for the initially.
So they could put me in a wheelchair, and I would have physical therapy an hour a day. About sorry, thank you. But other than that, I really didn't do much.
Well, you had to give yourself the time to level off, you know. It's okay. That's the part that we have to accept, because I was like you, I'm a go-getter. I did everything. You know, whatever I needed to do in my life, I did it.
And you're still doing it.
Yeah, but I balance
24 hours a day with almost no sleep.
Yeah, but I balance my life, you know. I know what's important in my life, you know, since my stroke. But yeah, so, you know, we have to give ourselves the time, and, you know, to heal, you know. We have to give ourselves the time to
help
heal.
from your family and friends.
Yeah, and one thing that I thought about before, and then we'll let Jim speak, is that when you were talking about, what did you say initially about something? You were mad at yourself for something. And I thought to myself, did you ever forgive yourself? I forget what we were talking about. I should have brought it up at that moment. You said something. When I think about it, I'll let you know. But I said, like, Jim?
Was it that she fell asleep after the phone.
Yes, 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 yes. So, like, you didn't know, like, you weren't yourself at that particular moment. So you have to, forgive yourself, and you have to allow yourself to just, it is what it is, and you have to go move on. And, and you're doing such great, tremendous work, to really make a difference in the world. And that's your passion now. So, you're doing well. You're phenomenal. So
I am doing well, and it took a lot of work.
yes, 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 yes. And that's something that we spoke about before. I was an ambassador for a hospital at one point, and that's one of the things that they needed from me, was to go into a room and to share with the patients, bring them hope, but share with them that it's going to be, you have to do the work. You have to do the work. You know what, though, in life, I love sports. I'm an athlete. So any athlete, they don't get to be successful by just sitting back. Nobody gets to be successful by sitting back. You have to put in the time and the work. You have to. And the same thing with recovery. You have to put time in to recover. You have to. And the truth is that if we don't have our health, we don't have nothing in life. If we don't have our health, we have nothing. So you can worry about your job, you can worry about, everything else, but you really do have to take care of yourself before anybody, and you could take care of anybody else. So that's, go ahead.
No, so I think you're absolutely true.
Yeah. So Jim, tell us your like one of the things that you got from this experience.
So I was going to kind of go with the way you approached it with Marcia, which was, what was the life lesson I learned, which is whether you're in your 30s, your 40s, 50s, 60s, it doesn't matter what age you are. Enjoy and love the people that's close to you, because anything can happen at any age. And if you survive that situation, make sure you enjoy the fact that you still have that person with you.
Yeah. Life is it's tough. It's tough. And you really always just need to love each other, and just, and people, we don't all agree on the same thing, but, you have to respectfully share your views. We have every right to share our views, but doing it in a loving manner, and love each other. What else is there? This pandemic has really, we were told and shared with that we needed to stay put inside. But we were so close at that particular moment. The whole world was one. We were all in it together. We were all trying to stay healthy and stay alive, and love one another. And it was phenomenal the way, everybody just came together, almost like September 11th. I remember September 11th, so vividly, because I remember God saying to me, I was on Lincoln Ave right by my house. And I remember God saying to me, like, you got to remember these moments. They have to have people remember these moments, not to go back to the way that it was before, because people were so together at that particular time. They were doing for one another without question, without anything. It just, those are the moments that we have to remember in our lives. So that's what I really, really believe. So, Marcia, so we only have 10 more minutes, but tell us, like, one of the support, one of the support, if you, when you speak to people, how do you tell them, like, how to get through it. I know that we have to do it, but what is one of the simple lessons, that they have to do every day?
So I think I'm going to answer a little bit differently.
Okay.
So for me, I relied on Jim for everything. And it was August of 2014, and he was going to go back to work. And he said, you need to go try driving your car. And first of all, I was scared because I didn't know if I could drive, and I didn't know if I would drive well, if I would hit anyone. So we got in the car, and I couldn't get it into reverse because it's a stick shift. So I shifted with my left hand and pulled out of the driveway, and I got down to the street, and I shifted into the gear, and I was actually able to shift all the gears, but it was painful. But that's the day I feel like I started getting my advocacy back. And I'm going to tell you one more thing. I was afraid of driving for 3 years.
Wow.
And still I drove. Now, he suggested, actually, you did more than a suggestion. I could drive in a 4-mile radius. I could not drive on highways. If I had a doctor's appointment, I could drive there, but still not on highways. And thank you.
But what I love about Jim is he was giving you a little bit of rope, but keeping you within those boundaries. Yeah. So it was like, okay, I could try this. I could do this for a while. I could do this.
And it would build your confidence.
Yes.
So that eventually you'd be able to do more.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's, I don't know, once again, I didn't read the book, but that is so important. The family and the love and the support around you, you have to love them through it, but you also have to have guidelines. You also have to pull them up a little bit. You can't, you have to, it's really a tough balance, Jim. It really is, it's tough because you have to know your partner or your family member or your loved one or whatever. You have to know them enough to say they can go a little bit more or they can't go a little bit more. With Dominic Cortellessa, I always remember him coming in, sitting down, talking to me, and then saying, don't worry, I'll come back tomorrow. So he would give me the time to think about it and process it. And when he came back the next day, if I didn't know, that's okay. I'll come back tomorrow. And he kept like making me do the work, but he gave me the support. And it really is an important tool, what you've done, Jim. It really, and I hope that when you do speak that you remind people, the families around them, how important it is to not let them leave them at the same level. You have to know and navigate around your loved ones. You have to, because otherwise their life won't mean anything. They'll just, be there, and don't get me wrong. I know that each case is so different, Marcia and I are blessed to be able to sit here and have a conversation, because there are people that suffer strokes that can't even, they can't talk, they can't speak. So that's why I said, like, you have to know that person personally to navigate around. And
I just wanted to make 2 points. One, Marcia, if you're going to be speaking, giving motivational speeches, and I know you're going to be very good at it, should not only be to stroke groups, it should be to open to many different organizations, because nobody knows when something like this could happen.
Right.
And the information you have is so valuable, so helpful to family, that you should get the message across to the world. And the other thing I wanted to ask is, Jim, did you go in the car with her in the very beginning to test how her driving was going to be?
Yes, I did. Especially the first time we got into the car, I was there just watching to see if she could do it. And once I knew she could do it, then and I think I was with her probably the next 3 or 4 times. But like we were saying earlier, you have to know when it's time to let her do it on her own.
And it's hard.
It is.
It's hard. It's hard to trust your instinct.
And I'll admit that there's, I was thinking percentage wise, at one point I was 100% responsible for her. And then it got to like 90% and then 80%.
And you had to gain the confidence to let her do it also.
Exactly. And I'll admit that there's a 1% that I still try to,
It's more than 1%.
Okay.
But that's the love. That's the love. And that happens in any relationship, right? Sometimes you're 30%, sometimes the other one's 70, sometimes the other one is 70, sometimes the other one's 30, sometimes you're 50-50. That's why a partnership, a relationship is really important, because you pick them up, you have their backs all the time. No matter what, you work as a loving relationship. So,
and you both chose the right partner. Mm-hmm. You could see the love radiating, and in reading the book, I got such a feeling of the devotion you have towards Marcia and how she felt towards you. It was beautiful, and I recommend the book to everybody.
And they can get the book on Amazon, am I correct?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, and this is the name of the book in case anybody wants to. It's perfect. And I really can't wait to read it, because, so it says how to become your own healthcare advocate. We were talking about that before, I guess in the green Zoom room, how, what do you mean by healthcare advocate, Marcia?
So I think for me, part of it meant, so I had aphasia and I couldn't talk, or I couldn't talk much. So I continued to look for people who could help that aphasia. And I found a couple people after the fact. So at 2 years, I found somebody who did laser therapy on my head, and my aphasia got better. And 3.5 years after my stroke, I found somebody who did neurofeedback on me. And within 16 sessions, I could talk like I'm talking now.
Wow.
And that is, for me, the point. It's like you have to begin to look for people who can help you.
And if you can't look, because sometimes the patient can't, it's the loved ones around you that need to start building up that team, that softball team around you to help you.
Exactly.
And you want all positive people to be helping you.
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't want to hear anything negative. Anybody who says anything negative, you've got to remove them from your life and only have positive people helping you recover.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing about my friends is I have positive friends. And if I didn't have positive friends, I would be very different from where I am today.
Yeah.
I'd also like to respond to what Judy just said. People should not be afraid to, if they go to a doctor and they find that situation where they don't think the doctor is going to help them, or they feel a negative experience with the doctor, call it quits with that doctor and find another one.
It's happened to me. I was in the hospital. I was trying to meet the doctor. I was waiting online to find out the information who the doctor was, and somebody shoved me off the line and said, "Do I have any messages?" And the receptionist said, "Yes, you just pushed the you just pushed off the line the lady whose dad just had a massive stroke. And then he looked at me and he got off the line and he looked at me and he said, well, you know, there's really nothing I can do for your dad. He's going to die. And I said, you know something? There is something I can do. You're fired. My dad lived another 3 years and 3 months, and he was able to communicate with me. He was paralyzed and all that. But I gave him 3 years and 3 months more by doing that.
Wow. That's incredible. Before we say our last, words, because of course I'm going to give Marcia and Jim the availability and Judy as well. I do want to, share with everybody that, I'm just beginning to really delve back into God 30 years ago when I suffered my stroke. I'm writing my book, Extra Innings, and I'm also writing a book, Love Them Through It. And
let's not forget the movie.
Yes, the movie is the book, The Extra Innings. But, I really am trying to put the pieces together for my family, from my family. Dominic Cordeless, I talk about him a lot because he was the one that really helped the aphasia part, really helped the brain, really helped me to put tools in my belt. But that does not take anything away from my sister and my father and my husband and at the time and my daughter Brittany, who was alive, and my grandmother. And I don't want to take anything away from their support as I was going through it. But over 30 years ago, strokes weren't as prevalent as they are up front as they are right now. We know more about strokes, and we know more about the recovery, and we know more about the support, and we know more that bring hope to people. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that I'm really delving back into internally to figure out putting the pieces together of back when I experienced my stroke. I remember some of the stuff. I don't remember all of it. And that's why we had my sister on the show one time, and we had I interviewed my softball coach, Pat Talafero. So I'm really doing my work. I didn't want anybody to think nobody did anything until I met Dominic, and that's absolutely not true. So I just wanted to clear that up with everybody to make sure, my family was very important. My sister is a medical person that knows so much about medical. She was the guiding for, her and my husband and my father. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that nobody misunderstood that. So Marcia, tell us, we only have a few more minutes because it's 10 o'clock already, and Rob, we're coming. Tell us if you had one thing to say, if you had an elevator speech to give to somebody, what is it that you would tell them?
So I would tell stroke patients, don't ever give up, period. I would tell the same thing to caregivers. Don't ever give up. The caretaker or caregiver needs to take some time for themselves, because this is a long marathon.
It's the rest of your life, actually.
That's a long marathon.
Yeah, I know. But the truth is that I hope that any experience, whether it's your heart attack or whether it's cancer you survive, cancer, no matter what it is, a stroke, I hope at that particular pinpoint moment in your life you realize that you need to love each other through it, and never give up, because really there's only God, we don't have control over when our life is going to end. So we have to be there for everybody as we're experiencing it. Jim, do you have what would be your elevator speech to somebody?
I would say it kind of goes not only along with people who have strokes, but any kind of experience. But if you're having a bad day, think about the things that other people could be having that are even worse. Mm-hmm. And situations like this, if I'm having a bad day, I just think about the fact that I have her back with me.
Yeah. Judy, do you want to share anything before we go?
The most important factor is everybody around the stroke patient must be positive and give the person the will to go on and hope and do whatever they can to help them along. It's vital.
So,
and I also want Marcia to know, and Jim, that we're going to invite you back because there's other aspects.
Yeah, we'd love to continue this conversation with you because these are the things that people need to.
We're also going to go into insurance and how you handle the insurance problems. And I know that insurance didn't cover everything, and you did go beyond that, and you paid for it to get what you needed.
Yes, and insurance is one of the things that I'm an advocate for. That I can't understand why an insurance company could determine what someone needs to recover. It just doesn't make sense. So we'd love to book you guys again and really delve into that, because I think Judy just said you guys paid for it, but what about those that don't have it to pay for? That's the sad thing.
And that's a project we're working on right now with doctors, with surgeons, doctors, healthcare professionals, people who have suffered a stroke. We're getting a group together and we're going to explore it further.
Yes. So we need to go. I hate to end this conversation, but we want to thank you so much for reaching out to me, Marcia. It's a blessing to have met you and Jim. You guys are doing wonderful, wonderful, wonderful work in the world, and continue to do what you're doing because you're on a wonderful journey.
Thank you, Renee.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you to Judy and Jim too.
Yes, Jim too. And thank you to Keith so much for connecting us.
And happy and healthy New Year. I'll be talking to you shortly.
Yes. We'll see you in a few minutes with our second guest, Rob Velasquez, I believe that's how you say his name. Yeah. Rob Velasquez, he has a phenomenal story. He's in our waiting room. And
our green Zoom room.
In our Zoom green room. I see him there. So we'll be back in a few minutes. We're going to close out the show, and then we'll stream back again live. So thank you so much for joining us today. And honestly,
and God bless you both.
Yes, God bless you both. Have a blessed day, and really love each other. Be kind to one another, and enjoy the moments. Enjoy the moments. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Thanks.
But we forgot to blow our kisses. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Judy.
ti. No me puedes oír, no me puedes